It's one of those stories you see online, a modern fable that feels like it should be true. A tale spun in the digital ether that resonates with a deep, collective yearning for justice and hidden worth. You can almost picture the scene perfectly, not just see it, but feel it in the bones. The quiet, sterile air of a business-class cabin, a world meticulously engineered to feel separate and superior. It is a hermetically sealed bubble of chilled champagne, polite, hushed tones, and the expensive, almost suffocating scent of leather, perfume, and privilege. On a flight like that, let's call it Flight 734, cruising at a serene 37,000 feet, that powerful illusion is everything. Every passenger who steps across the threshold into this rarefied atmosphere becomes part of an unspoken, implicit agreement. This space is for a certain kind of person, a successful person, a person who not only belongs, but looks the part, their success worn as visibly as their designer watch or their tailored suit. And then there's this woman. Imagine her in seat 4A, a window seat. She isn't gazing at the cabin, isn't soaking in the manufactured luxury. Her focus is outward, on the endless, impossible blue and the shifting architecture of the clouds. She is entirely unaware, or perhaps willfully ignorant, of the network of judgmental stares she's steadily attracting. She isn't dressed for business class, not by any of its unwritten but rigidly enforced rules. She's in simple, well-worn jeans and a faded dark gray hoodie. The fabric is impossibly soft, not from expensive cashmere, but from 1,000 washes, a history of wear that has rendered it almost a part of her. The cuffs are just a little frayed, the color muted by time and sun. To the other passengers, the gatekeepers of this airborne sanctuary, she is an eyesore, a smudge on their otherwise perfect canvas of luxury. They see the hoodie, a garment of utility and comfort, and in their minds they think they know her whole story. They see a contest winner, a misplaced economy passenger, a beneficiary of some clerical error. They assume, with the casual arrogance of the comfortable, that she simply doesn't belong. They couldn't possibly be more wrong. Their assumptions are a galaxy away from the truth. They have no idea that this quiet, unassuming woman is more respected and, in her own world, more powerful and consequential than all of them combined. They don't know that before this flight lands, their fragile bubble of superiority is going to be spectacularly, deafeningly shattered by the thunderous roar of jet engines. They do not know that an entire squadron of America's most elite, most lethal fighter pilots is at this very moment waiting to salute the very woman they so casually and cruelly dismissed. Now, while stories like this, with their perfect narrative arcs and satisfying comeuppance, are almost certainly fictional, the kind of viral lightning in a bottle that captures the internet's imagination for a week, they stick with us. They lodge themselves in our collective consciousness for a very powerful reason. Let's break down why.
The opening salvo in this silent, one-sided war is fired by a man we will call Richard Hale. He's a tech CEO, a man who has successfully monetized disruption, and he wears his impeccably tailored suit like a suit of armor, a physical manifestation of his net worth. He leans across the aisle, breaching the polite buffer zone to speak to his companion, a social media influencer named Tara Wells. He doesn't truly whisper. He uses a stage whisper, a volume calibrated just enough for those in the surrounding seats to hear, a performance for the captive audience. I have to say, Richard smirks, the expression not quite reaching his eyes, which are busy scanning the cabin for confirmation of his own status. I was under the impression the ticket price was supposed to be a filter, a rather effective one, usually. It seems standards are slipping. Tara, a woman whose entire life is a meticulously curated performance for her 2 million followers, gives a small, tinkling laugh that is as practiced as her smile. "Rich, be nice," she chides. But her eyes, as she glances over at the woman in the hoodie, are just as cold and dismissive as his. Maybe she won a contest, or perhaps her frequent flyer miles from a decade of budget travel finally cleared. It must be a big day for her. The woman in 4A, let's call her Rachel Monroe, hears them. She would have to be deaf not to. The words are barbs, meant to sting and to alienate. But she doesn't react. There is no flinch, no turn of the head, no angry glare. She just continues her silent communion with the sky, her posture relaxed, her focus unbroken. To Richard and Tara, this infuriating lack of reaction is all the proof they need. It confirms their diagnosis. She's out of her league, intimidated, probably embarrassed. Her silence doesn't read as strength. It reads as weakness, and it fuels them. Their mockery becomes a small, self-congratulatory performance, a way to reinforce their own sense of belonging by highlighting her otherness. They are insiders, and her presence is an affront to their club. Richard, growing bolder, flags down a flight attendant with an impatient snap of his fingers. The attendant, a woman named Clara with tired but professional eyes, approaches with a practiced smile. "Excuse me," Richard says, his voice sharp and dripping with condescension. "My colleague and I were just wondering, is there no longer any sort of dress code for business class? I'd only ask because the ambiance, which is a significant part of what your premium customers pay for, is being somewhat compromised." Clara, the flight attendant, is momentarily taken aback. Her gaze flickers from Richard's demanding, entitled face to Rachel, who is bothering absolutely no one, a portrait of quiet tranquility. She has seen this type of passenger before, and she knows navigating this interaction is like walking a tightrope. "Sir, our policy is that we welcome all ticketed passengers. We don't have a specific dress code as long as a passenger is behaving respectfully and not causing a disturbance," she begins, her voice calm and even. Richard cuts her off with a derisive scoff. "Of course you don't," he mutters, leaning back into his seat as if the very notion is exhausting. He has made his point. He has established the hierarchy. Tara decides to try a different, more modern angle. Passive aggression delivered via social media. She pulls out her top-of-the-line smartphone, angles it just so, and snaps an artsy photo of her own ridiculously expensive designer shoes, pointedly making sure that Rachel's worn, nondescript sneakers and the frayed gray cuff of her hoodie are visible in the background of the shot. The caption is crafted for maximum snark, a digital dog whistle to her followers. She types, "Sometimes you pay for a premium experience, but the vibe is more public transit. Some people just don't get the memo. Hashtag business class fails. Hashtag travel etiquette. Hashtag know your place." She hits post and settles back with a small, vindicated smile, imagining the likes and validating comments already pouring in. Rachel feels it all. She doesn't need to see the phone to know a photo was likely taken. She can feel the oppressive weight of their contempt, the shifting tension in the air around her. It's a familiar feeling, a ghost that has haunted her throughout her career. She has spent a lifetime being underestimated, using a quiet, unassuming exterior to mask a will of iron and a mind forged in crucibles they couldn't even imagine. The men she has commanded, the adversaries she has outthought, the enemies she has faced down in skies black with menace, all made the same fundamental mistake at first. They judged the surface. These passengers, with their petty cruelties and fragile egos, are just a much more pathetic, much more less dangerous version of the same old story. She closes her eyes, shutting them out. They're focused on the worn fabric of her hoodie. She is focused on the man who gave it to her, her wingman, her best friend who fell from the sky in a blaze of fire and selfless courage. This hoodie isn't a fashion statement. It's a memorial. It's a shroud. It's a tangible connection to a world of sacrifice, honor, and duty that these people, in their world of filters and followers, couldn't possibly comprehend.
The flight drones on, a seamless journey through the upper atmosphere, And so does the campaign of quiet, persistent harassment. The cruelty becomes a kind of sport for Richard and Tara. During the meticulously orchestrated meal service, as Clara, the flight attendant, is carefully placing a porcelain dish on Rachel's tray table, Richard accidentally stretches his legs out, jostling the attendant's arm. A glass of ice water tips, splashing a cold spray across Rachel's sleeve and lap. "Oh, terribly sorry," he says. The words technically correct, but delivered with an absolute vacuum of sincerity. His eyes glitter with mean-spirited satisfaction. Tara, across the aisle, smothers a giggle behind her hand. The act is so transparently deliberate, so childish, that it's almost comical. Rachel, however, merely picks up her linen napkin and begins dabbing at the cold water on her hoodie's sleeve. She offers the horrified flight attendant a small, reassuring nod. "It's fine," she says, her voice perfectly even, a calm lake in the middle of their brewing storm. "It's just water. No harm done." Her composure is utterly infuriating to them. It's like poking a caged animal with a stick, and the animal refuses to even flinch. It denies them the satisfaction of a reaction, the drama they crave. So they decide to push harder, to escalate from passive aggression to outright, broadcasted insults. Tara pulls out her phone again, this time initiating a loud video call to her mother, ensuring her voice grates on the nerves of everyone nearby. "You would not believe who they're letting in business class now, Mom," she says, her voice piercing the cabin's quiet hum. "Seriously, it's like a public bus up here. There's a woman sitting near me who looks like she just rolled out of a homeless shelter. I mean, the hoodie is literally falling apart. They should be offering me a partial refund for the destruction of the atmosphere alone." Now, other passengers are beginning to shift uncomfortably in their expensive seats. The cruelty has become too loud, too overt to ignore. A man in 3B lowers his financial newspaper and shoots Tara a disapproving glare. A woman across the aisle pointedly puts on her noise-canceling headphones. The silent complicity is starting to crack. But still, Rachel doesn't react. She simply continues eating her meal with a deliberate, unhurried calm that is, in its own way, more unnerving than any emotional outburst could ever be. She is an anchor of stillness in their turbulent sea of malice. It is then that the captain's voice crackles over the intercom, a sound that instantly commands attention. His tone is different from the usual folksy welcome. It's clipped, formal, and tinged with an unusual urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. This is the captain speaking. We will be making a brief, unscheduled stop before our final destination. We have been asked by air traffic control to divert to accommodate a priority personnel transfer. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause and will provide more information when we can." A confused murmur ripples through the cabin. A priority transfer? An unscheduled stop? Richard is visibly furious. An unplanned diversion is a mortal insult to his meticulously optimized schedule. "Unbelievable," he hisses to Tara, his voice tight with anger. "Completely unacceptable. Someone incredibly important must be on board for them to derail a whole flight like this." He scans the cabin, his eyes sweeping over the well-dressed passengers, searching for a face that looks important enough to warrant this disruption. His gaze passes right over Rachel, dismissing her as a complete non-entity. She is furniture. She is background noise. As the plane begins its descent much sooner than expected, it becomes terrifyingly clear that this is no ordinary civilian airport. Below them, there are no brightly lit terminals or sprawling parking lots. Instead, they see long, perfect, military-grade runways and rows of severe-looking windowless hangars. The tarmac is dotted with sleek gray military aircraft, their shapes angular and predatory. And then they see them, a sight that makes the breath catch in their throats. A perfect straight line of F-22 Raptors, the most advanced and deadly fighter jets in the world,
parked in a silent, menacing formation. The cabin goes completely, deathly silent. This isn't just a military airport. A passenger with a background in aviation whispers to his wife, his voice filled with awe. "That's Joint Base Andrews." The name hangs in the air. This is the home of Air Force One, the President's Air Base, the most secure military airfield on the East Coast. Richard presses his face against the window, his anger replaced by sheer dumbfounded confusion. "What on earth are we doing here?" he says to no one in particular. The plane taxis with an unnerving slowness and precision, coming to a halt not at a terminal gate, but directly in front of the assembled formation of fighter jets. The powerful engines wind down into an eerie quiet. The seatbelt sign pings off with its familiar chime, but nobody moves. Every single person in business class is staring at the cabin door, gripped by the same overwhelming question. Who on this flight is so important that they can divert a commercial airliner to one of the most secure military airfields on the entire planet?
The cabin door unlatches, not with a gentle hiss, but with a heavy, authoritative thud that echoes through the silent cabin. Standing in the doorway isn't a smiling flight attendant, but a man who seems carved from granite. He is tall and imposing, dressed in a perfectly pressed flight suit, his posture radiating an unassailable authority. The insignia of a full colonel is stitched onto his shoulder, a silver eagle that seems to glint in the cabin lights. Behind him, visible on the tarmac, stands the squadron of elite fighter pilots next to their F-22s, each one at a rigid parade ground attention. They are not looking at the plane. They are a silent, waiting honor guard. The colonel's eyes, sharp and intelligent, scan the cabin. His gaze sweeps over the collection of confused, wealthy passengers, dismissing them in a single practiced assessment. He's looking for someone specific. He takes 2 steps inside, his polished black boots making a solid, authoritative sound on the carpeted floor, a sound that seems to silence the very air. He stops. His search is over. His voice, when it comes, is not loud, but it is clear and powerful, cutting through the thick tension like a razor. He is speaking to one person, and one person only. "Commander Monroe," he says, his voice resonating with a profound and unmistakable respect. "Call sign, Midnight Viper. Welcome home." Every single head in the business class cabin snaps toward seat 4A. The movement is a synchronized, convulsive reaction. It's a moment of collective, brain-freezing, record-scratching disbelief. The imposing, high-ranking colonel is looking directly at the quiet, unassuming woman in the faded gray hoodie. Slowly, deliberately, Rachel Monroe stands up. The motion is fluid, economical. She reaches for the zipper on her hoodie, and as she pulls it down and shrugs the garment off her shoulders, she seems to transform. The illusion of the meek, out-of-place passenger dissolves in an instant. Underneath, she's wearing a simple black t-shirt, but on its sleeve, previously hidden by the hoodie, is a small, intricately embroidered patch, the insignia of an elite, highly classified F-22 squadron. It is the exact same patch worn on the shoulders of the pilot standing at attention on the tarmac outside. She folds the gray hoodie with a careful, reverent precision, as if handling a sacred relic, and places it gently on her seat. Then she turns to face the colonel. Her posture is entirely different now. Her spine is ramrod straight, her shoulders are back, her chin is up. The quiet passenger is gone. In her place stands a commander. "Colonel," she replies, her voice as calm as it had been when the water spilled on her, but now it carries an unmistakable undercurrent of the same authority as his. "Report. The fleet is secure, ma'am. All birds are in the nest and accounted for. Your presence is requested for the debriefing." The cabin is frozen in a tableau of shock.
Jaws are quite literally on the floor. Richard Hale looks like he's been struck by lightning, his face a mask of pale, slack-jawed horror. His brain is visibly struggling, failing to connect the charity case he had spent hours mocking with the decorated, revered commander standing before him. Tara Wells has gone a ghastly shade of white, her forgotten phone lying useless in her lap. Her entire world, a carefully constructed artifice of likes, shares, and superficial status, has just collided with a reality so profound and so genuine that it's utterly incomprehensible to her. Her eyes dart from Rachel, Commander Monroe, to the squadron of pilots outside, their unwavering gaze fixed on this one woman with an expression of absolute, unshakable loyalty. The woman she had just broadcasted to her 2 million followers as looking homeless? The shame is a physical force, a crushing weight in her chest. Rachel gives the colonel a curt, single nod. "Let's go." She begins to walk down the aisle. Her steps are measured, confident. As she passes Richard and Tara's seats, she doesn't give them a single glance. They have ceased to exist. They are utterly insignificant. They spent the entire flight trying to make her feel small, and in the space of 30 seconds, they are the ones who have been made microscopic, irrelevant specks in the presence of something far greater.
As Commander Rachel Monroe reaches the open doorway, the colonel takes a formal step back, clearing her path with a gesture of deep respect. The moment her foot touches the top of the metal stairs leading down to the tarmac, a single, sharp command barks from the ground below. "Attention!" The sound is electric. It's not a shout, but a command that cracks like a whip, and it seems to vibrate through the very fuselage of the plane. In an instant, the entire squadron, 24 of the world's most formidable aviators, snaps to perfect, ramrod-straight attention. Their movements are so synchronized, so precise, they look like a single organism moving with one will. Inside the plane, the remaining passengers watch, breathless and silent. Richard has half risen from his seat, his knuckles white where he grips the armrest, his face a grotesque mixture of fear and awe. Tara is filming again, her influencer instincts on autopilot, but her hands are shaking so violently that the footage will be nothing but a blurry testament to her own terror and humiliation. Rachel pauses at the top of the stairs, her silhouette framed against the incredible backdrop of the F-22 Raptors and the darkening sky. She takes a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, the familiar, comforting scent of jet fuel and home. It's a scent that means more to her than any expensive perfume. Then as she begins her descent down the stairs, the lead pilot on the ground, a man whose uniform identifies him as the squadron's second-in-command, shouts another order, his voice ringing with power and unadulterated pride. "Squadron, salute!" In perfect, breathtaking, soul-stirring unison, 24 arms snap up in a crisp, powerful salute. The sound of their gloved hands striking their chests is a single, sharp report. This is the part of the story that transcends reality and becomes pure, unadulterated drama. In the real world, military salutes are governed by strict, unbending protocols. A full squadron salute on an active tarmac for a commander arriving on a diverted commercial flight just wouldn't happen. This is not protocol. This is a gesture of immense personal tribute, a display of profound devotion reserved not just for a commander, but for a legend. They are saluting their leader, their mentor, their protector. They are saluting Midnight Viper. Inside the plane, you could hear a pin drop. The silence is absolute, broken only by the frantic, shallow breathing of those who are witnessing it. The raw power of the moment is a crushing force. Every sneer, every whisper, every condescending glance that had been sent Rachel's way now seems not just foolish, but sacrilegious. Richard and Tara are frozen, statues of abject humiliation. They mocked her hoodie, her shoes, her very presence. And now an honor guard of the nation's most elite warriors is saluting her with a reverence usually reserved for heads of state. Rachel reaches the bottom of the stairs, and with a practiced precision born of 1,000 repetitions, she returns the salute to her squadron. Her movement is sharp, clean, and filled with a quiet pride.
The colonel, who has followed her down, gives one last cold glance back up into the plane, his eyes lingering for a beat on Richard and Tara's stunned, horrified faces. His expression isn't angry, it's worse. It is one of chilling, absolute contempt. He then turns to Rachel, his voice now lower, more personal. "Your transport is ready, Commander." As Rachel Monroe walks away across the tarmac, flanked by the colonel, disappearing into a world of duty and honor that they can never be a part of, the passengers watch until she is gone. The cabin door closes, sealing them back in their gilded cage, their bubble of manufactured luxury. But the illusion is shattered for good. The expensive air is now thick and suffocating with the undeniable, embarrassing stench of their own profound and epic misjudgment. Back on the plane, as it prepares for its short, final leg of the journey, there is only silence. A heavy, uncomfortable, shame-filled silence. But online, a storm is brewing, about to break with incredible ferocity. It turns out a quiet law student in seat 6B, a young man who had been watching the unfolding drama with a growing sense of disgust, had discreetly recorded several short video clips of Richard and Tara's most egregious comments and actions. He had been appalled by the naked classism and bullying. Now, seeing the incredible reveal, he knows he has to act. As the plane gets back in the air and the Wi-Fi signal flickers to life, he uploads the footage to social media. He methodically tags Innovatech, Richard Hale's company, and a dozen major news outlets. He writes a simple but powerful caption. "On Flight 734 today, I witnessed some of the most disgusting and elitist behavior I have ever seen, courtesy of Innovatech CEO Richard Hale and influencer Tara Wells. They spent hours openly mocking and harassing a woman for her clothes. Turns out that woman was Commander Rachel Monroe of the U.S. Air Force, and she's important enough to have a squadron of F-22s salute her. This is how bullies act when they think no one is watching. They should be ashamed." The post explodes. It is retweeted thousands of times in minutes. The hashtags business class bully, Innovatech shame, and the powerful Commander Monroe begin trending globally. For Richard Hale, the consequences are swift, brutal, and merciless. A viral video of its celebrated progressive CEO acting like a classist, arrogant tyrant is a public relations nightmare of catastrophic proportions for Innovatech. The board of directors is inundated with calls. The company's stock begins to tremble. An emergency meeting is called via frantic text messages. Before Richard Hale even collects his luggage from the baggage claim, Innovatech's PR department has issued a statement. "The behavior displayed by Mr. Hale in the recently surfaced video is antithetical to our company's core values of respect, integrity, and humility. Innovatech does not condone this conduct in any way. Effective immediately, Mr. Hale has been terminated from his position as CEO." For Tara Wells, the digital fallout is just as savage. Her career is built on a shallow foundation of perceived perfection and aspirational lifestyle, and that foundation now crumbles into dust. Her comment sections become a raging tidal wave of disgust and condemnation. Brands that had paid her tens of thousands of dollars to promote their products, skincare lines, fashion labels, luxury resorts, begin dropping her one by one, issuing their own public statements, distancing themselves from her toxic behavior. Her carefully built digital empire, based on nothing more than a shallow illusion, is dismantled in a matter of hours by the very audience she cultivated. Her tearful, hastily filmed apology video, in which she blames stress and claims her words were taken out of context, is met with further derision and only makes things worse. Meanwhile, the story of Commander Rachel Midnight Viper takes on a life of its own, becoming a modern legend. Her official service record remains classified, a testament to the sensitivity of her work. But former and current service members begin sharing anonymous stories online about her unparalleled skill as a pilot, her courageous leadership, and her profound decency as a human being. The faded gray hoodie becomes an unlikely but powerful symbol of quiet strength, of substance over style. A small, veteran-owned apparel company, seeing the trend, quickly designs and starts selling replicas of the Commander's Hoodie, with 100% of the proceeds going to a charity for the families of fallen pilots. It sells out in hours, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. Richard and Tara tried to shame her for her clothes, and in doing so, they accidentally made them an icon of honor.
While the internet is methodically dismantling the lives of her tormentors, Commander Rachel Monroe is a world away, standing in a sterile, brightly lit debriefing room deep within the secure confines of Andrews Air Force Base. This is her real world, a world of maps, data, and life-or-death decisions. Her husband, a senior strategist for the Joint Chiefs, is there, his presence a quiet, solid support. He's the one who gave her the hoodie. It had belonged to her best friend and wingman, Lieutenant Commander Mike Solo Jenkins. On their last mission together over a hostile sea, Mike's F-22 was critically hit. With his final breaths, he deliberately drew enemy fire away from the rest of the formation, allowing Rachel and the younger pilots to escape, sacrificing himself to save his squadron. The hoodie, which Mike had worn on their last day on base, is all she has left of him. It's her armor, her memorial, tougher and more meaningful than any suit of armor Richard Hale could ever buy. Her superiors, a panel of generals and intelligence officers, listen with rapt attention as she gives her after-action report. She speaks with calm, clinical precision about geopolitical tensions, enemy capabilities, and simmering threats on the horizon. Here, in this room, her worth isn't measured by her clothes or her bank account, but by the lives she saves and the missions she accomplishes. During a break, one of the younger officers shows her the viral video on his phone. She watches the footage of Richard and Tara, her face an unreadable mask of professional composure. She sees their sneers, hears their insults. Then she sees the salute. A flicker of profound emotion finally crosses her face, not anger at her tormentors, but a deep, overwhelming pride in her people. "They're a good crew," she says softly, her voice thick with emotion for the first time. "The best." The incident on the plane, so trivial and irritating at the time, has now become a stark public illustration of the two vastly different worlds she inhabits. She feels no anger, no desire for revenge. The spectacular downfall of Richard Hale and Tara Wells is to her simply the natural, inevitable implosion of hollow things when they collide with something real. Their fate is of no consequence to her. Later, as she walks along a quiet corridor with the colonel who greeted her, he gestures to his phone. "The internet is calling you a hero, Commander," he says with a small smile. Rachel shakes her head, the motion firm and immediate. "A hero is the guy who doesn't come home, Colonel," she replies, her gaze distant for a moment. "I'm just a pilot. I'm just doing my job." Her incredible strength wasn't just in her ability to fly a multi-million-dollar jet at twice the speed of sound. It was rooted in a profound and hard-won humility, a humility born from seeing the true cost of conflict and understanding what is truly worth valuing in this world.
Hours later, the final short leg of Flight 734 is completed in a profound, deeply uncomfortable silence. The remaining business class passengers studiously avoid making eye contact with one another, their earlier smug superiority having curdled into a thick paste of collective shame. Richard Hale and Tara Wells deplane not as VIPs, but as disgraced pariahs. Their downfall witnessed by the very same people they had tried so hard to impress. The empty seat, 4A, remains as a silent testament. It is now a space that was briefly occupied by greatness, a greatness to which they were all utterly and completely blind. This story, though a fictional dramatization born of the Internet's love for a satisfying morality play, touches on a fundamental, often forgotten truth. True respect is earned through character, courage, and integrity, not purchased with a premium ticket. It is a powerful reminder that we live our lives surrounded by quiet, unassuming heroes. The person bagging your groceries, the janitor cleaning an office late at night, the ER nurse on a 16-hour shift, the unassuming woman in a faded hoodie staring out a window. We have no idea what battles they fought, what burdens they carry, or what greatness resides within them. Commander Rachel Monroe didn't need the approval or validation of the people on that plane. Her value, her worth as a human being, was never determined by their shallow opinions. But their story and their spectacular fall from grace serves as a powerful cautionary tale for the rest of us. What does true worth really look like? It doesn't look like a designer watch or a first-class ticket. It looks like a worn-out gray hoodie that honors the memory of a fallen friend. It looks like quiet, unshakable composure in the face of petty mockery. It looks like a lifetime of service that asks for nothing in return. So the next time you find yourself making a snap judgment based on what someone wears or how they appear, remember this story. Remember the woman they mocked and the squadron that saluted her. True respect isn't about looking down on others from a perceived height. It's about having the wisdom, the grace, and the humility to recognize the hero who might be sitting right next to you.